have a lot of ways, for instance, for the scalabilities, availabilities. As a developer, we do not need to take care, worry about different things. Kubernetes resolved a lot of challenges. Of course, many may argue it's very complex working with Kubernetes just because of all the design and all the different concepts. That actually means, conversely, we have many ways to resolve different challenges. We just need a way to figure out how to resolve those challenges in the best possible ways, and the best way to figure out the requirements with the organizations. So everything in the CKA exam, they very good at the decoupling different components of Kubernetes. They offer different pillars. Those are the very important skills to help you resolve those different technical challenges for your organizations. Therefore, for this book, actually, we decouple, learning Kubernetes from different levels. Not only for the architecture point of view, but also decouple, for instance, we're learning about storage, security, networking, and different pillars. So when you're trying to pass those Kubernetes exam, probably will have different certifications. But this one actually, to my knowledge, by far is one of the most complex certification, but very much hands-on involved when it comes to pass certification. But to have a certification is never the goal, because our goal to really learn about Kubernetes is to bring value to organizations. Which is why when you read through this book, so a lot of people, they try to validate their knowledge about Kubernetes by passing the certifications. And ultimately, your goal should be about how to learn the technology and leverage those technologies to bring value to your organization. Therefore, I really want to see if this book would really help a community learn the technology and help people, especially those new learners, to be able to find their new career. So if you see for the book, and actually it's also very much hands-on, because when I wrote this book, it was at my lowest point of my career as well as my life, because I had an injury at that time, but I still spent time
Wow.
with the demo. Yeah. So I actually just broke my leg, so I had like,
Wow.
this, yeah, like a disability, where I had to stay at home. So I wanted to really make good use of my time. Therefore, I spent 6 months, just in front of a computer. Alongside my job, I also spent time to build some demos. Therefore, in this book, the different pillars, we actually started from explain the basic concepts of each component and the important
I guess.
theories. For instance, you need to learn architecture of Kubernetes and how to install and configure Kubernetes, as well as managing Kubernetes. Then just have a good understanding of the platform. Therefore, that actually help you to really deploy applications. So resolve all the scheduling and manage the life cycle of the application. Then for the chapter 5, when you can see, so a lot of different workloads, Kubernetes, people know about all the microservices, and the stateless basically is the core concept when we learned about, for instance, from the 12-factor apps, where we had the idea how to deploy the application on the different platforms. But Kubernetes is actually also excels at the stateful workloads, where we need to persist the data state. Wherefore, in this, from this chapter 5, actually we start to deal with the storage. We're also trying to resolve a challenge about networking and security. Therefore, it's a very comprehensive area for people to pass certification. Validate your knowledge is the first, but more importantly, those are the things you will encounter in your daily life working as a Kubernetes administrator. Therefore, starting from learning technology is about understanding the core concepts, then use the core concepts to really do something, which is why in each chapter, actually, we also have the scenarios. So the scenarios basically where you can trying to get your hands dirty, and also we have some important questions in the Q&A in the FAQ as well, FAQ. Therefore, my hope is people use this book as not only a knowledge book, but also as a hands-on guide. So that will really take you from the beginning, learn the technology, get understanding, and get your hands dirty.
That's excellent. That's
Can I
very
ask a
comprehensive.
question? I was wondering, of course, writing a book, apparently this injury got you, on the track of doing something, making something, you know, leaving a mark in the cloud native space, which is great. How was your experience in your career? How did getting certifications affect your career, or like how, as a certification student, how did it help in terms of Kubernetes knowledge? Do you recommend it?
Actually, that's a very good question, and I'm gonna answer this in two parts. So the first part is about how what is the value of getting a certification. So to me, it's really because you have the certification is the way how you can uh, prove your understanding of the technology, but it's not the end goal. So the second part would be how to bring the value to the organization. So I think for my experience, in my journey to get a certification, basically I spend a lot of time to learn the technology through online courses, as well as sometimes I watch some videos as well. But more importantly, is I actually learn the technology almost all my expertise from the documentation and through the contributions. So even before I got a Kubernetes certification, I already contributed to the documentation. And GitHub is your best friend because that's where you find the knowledge, where you also learn some hands-on experience and make friends as well. So when it comes to bring the value to the organization, after I acquired all those certifications, actually I not only have all the, have two Kubernetes certifications, I also have all stack of Microsoft Azure organizations. So when I got into a job at Microsoft, so basically I trying to also help a lot of coworkers to learn the technology. Therefore, I actually spend a lot of time in coaching people learn the technology. At that time at Microsoft, there's a event is called Open Hack. So that is actually the event where we pick up a topic, for instance, a specific topic about technology, let's say containers. Therefore, they actually had a different hacks and on topics, different hands-on challenges. So I spend a lot of time to talk to people. When they learn the technology, they probably sometimes struggle to really to do some hands-on stuff to resolve the technical challenges by leveraging the power of the technology. Therefore, what brings to me is really about I have that intuition is to help people. It's very important. This is also the way how to empower people as well as help them to deliver value to organizations. Therefore, certification give me two things very important in my career. Firstly, is they give me the opportunity to get in a job to help people, and secondly, it's really helped me to empower myself and the people I worked with, so we can all deliver value to organizations. And I think it actually it creates a loop. Basically, we help each other and we grow together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I found that that's also works, at least for there was the same experience for me. I created a this company and other company working on Kubernetes. But sometimes people feel more comfortable asking questions when they're like to a coworker or inside a group of folks than asking in a public setting. So I also created kind of like internal office hours or cloud native office hours, and just was trying to pick up a one topic. So it's kind of like the internal version of this Kubernetes book club, right? And because sometimes people don't for whatever reason, and that's okay, right? They don't feel like asking questions, and I usually tell them like ask away. Like if I don't know, probably I would not know. The interesting part to me at least was finding out together. Like what's the answer to that, right? The same that happens at work. Like if you're troubleshooting something very specific and we don't know, like we figure out together like why core DNS decided to not work last night, right? And then you go back into the logs or the metrics of like how to troubleshoot it. At the end you come out learning something new, right? But people don't have that experience outside, so creating a cohort or an office hour to learn, people feel more comfortable like asking coworkers. So that's a good strategy. I don't know if other people do it inside their work, if they have like do you like that, maybe to folks here, like do you have an internal group that you can like attend and then learn about Kubernetes or ask questions about Kubernetes?
We had Slack channels and some groups. We actually had Kubernetes examples. I don't know if you've seen the project. There's a Kubernetes examples project, and at Container
That's a good one.
Solutions,
Yeah.
we were working actively on it. So it was a great way to get new joiners, on
Ask the
board.
team. Yeah.
Also, we were doing pair programming. So it was a great way to onboard new people on the company and also get questions or just, start practicing together. So yeah, we had some sessions back in the day. But related to my own question of the certifications, in my experience, gave me the confidence to just discuss the Kubernetes topics at length. Also, for example, it helped me to find anything on the documentation. I never have Kubernetes little cheat sheets anywhere. Just for Kubernetes specifically, I use only the documentation. And every time I know I can rely on it. And it comes from the certification practice, I think, because you just find everything there. So yeah.
So Melanie, you said you work on SIG docs. You contribute in SIG docs to documentation in Kubernetes.
Yeah, so basically, when I before I had certification already, started to contribute to Kubernetes documentation. Also, there are actually some projects, open source projects in Kubernetes ecosystem, such as STO or Linkerd. So every time when we have new technology came out, I was trying to just play around with it. Then also trying to really find that interconnection with Kubernetes. So basically, what it works well for the organization, and some people prefer have more centralized way. For instance, for monitoring, and for instance, for deal with the networking challenges. Probably source mesh in their context makes more sense. And some organizations probably looking to a model more agile, more flexible. Therefore, we have some other technologies in the ecosystem can help. But it's just really good, important to find that best combination for it makes most sense to the organization as well as to your workloads as well. So just based on my experience, I think a lot of things it comes to to have that good understanding is really to be able to learn the native technology. Then you can discover the value of the technology. Then therefore apply to your real life engagements or organization or projects. Yeah.
So you said that you were helping in the Kubernetes documentation, and that gave you also an opportunity to learn more in Kubernetes through the documentation. Did you, what type of contributions you did? Like some people have the perception that they have to have like the Kubernetes certification before they can submit a pull request to the docs. Is that true? Not true? Or you have to be an expert, or you can contribute things like maybe translation, maybe something that is not done yet, or like easy tasks there?
Actually, I think you are asking a really good question. And to me, I think it's very important to have that confidence, to start to do something. So basically, you need to break that mental, lock there, just to tell yourself everything is possible. And you need to learn and you need to do the right thing. To me, I think it's not really to say necessarily you will become like an expert. And I can be honest with you, I started to work on Kubernetes since 2017, and I wrote a lot of blogs, and I published 4 books on it. And I worked with customers, a lot of different engagement. I also coach people. I trained people in different sessions. I also presented, communities in many, many conferences. I don't see myself still like like 100%, because I think everything, Kubernetes is evolving all the time, and a lot of technologies actually is being changing. And for instance, for the Kubernetes 1.31, because I am a Kubernetes release team member, so I know actually a new coming changes, to make sure Kubernetes will be evolving more fitting to the AI workloads. Therefore, we have the DRA API, so DRA API, which is based on how we can, configure your scheduling TPUs. So if you see a lot of things, NVIDIA, they've been doing, so they're actually like a few steps ahead, but Kubernetes as a platform. So all the evolving changes actually allows us to make this as a more fair and a more demonstrative, a platform. So it's very important to help people to use the platform to adopt technology. To me, it's not necessary to be an expert to be um, on everything to be able to contribute to Kubernetes, because Kubernetes has different components. So if you are very good at one specific knowledge of Kubernetes, you can already start to share your understanding, but make sure there is a technical accuracy there. For instance, the first project I actually contributed was I think was Minikube. So basically, I analyzed the single node architecture as well as multi-node architecture, Kubernetes. So I find out the differences there, and actually I figured out there are some stuff, in the documentation was not accurate. Therefore, I started to, rephrase that in a better way that will help the understanding of the technology. That was actually my first contribution to Kubernetes stock. And then, of course, more and more as I learn more about Kubernetes, I actually had more understanding, and I'm trying to also, contribute to that more and more. But one thing very important is, even if you are not expert in the beginning, but as long as you have a good understanding of a specific area, actually the process when you're contributing to a doc, you will be talking to people who's already knew about Kubernetes, and because they'll be managing the documentation very long time. So you can have a discussion with them and to make sure what is the best way about the storytelling, what is the most technically accurate way to explain things. As many may knows, actually Kubernetes documentation is written by a lot of people from the worldwide. Even English is not our first language at all, but that is okay. Especially today, we have AI. It's very easy to use this to as a grammar checker. So myself, actually, when a lot of sometimes I make some spelling mistake, I always use Grammarly or just directly using AI to help me to prove some mistakes as well. So mental break is very important. You need to make sure you want to contribute. This is the most important thing. Secondly, is about technical accuracy. Have a good understanding. You don't need to be the expert for everything, but you need to learn. You need to be very good at something. And then as time goes on, basically you will develop your competence on all different areas, and one day you will be very good in a lot of different areas. But by then you still can't say you're expert on everything, because for us as an IT professional, it's really about learning. We need to be better, and the only way to become better is to just keep telling yourself, I need to keep learning, I need to be better. and I'm still not really at the top. That is the way how to be always, keep learning. Have that mindset is very important. So I would encourage everybody, if you have time and have the confidence, just to keep learning, because that is the process will give you more pressure, because you're working on something that will impact a lot of people in many ways. Therefore, you will trying to make sure you have that technical accuracy. You will do a lot of double checks. That actually helps you to learn more and better. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I was showing some of the if somebody wants to contribute into documentation, right? I think that the outcome is um, helping in the Kubernetes documentation actually can help you learn better. And the SIG docs is one of the like one of the best like group at making it super easy and structure, and showing here um the docs they have structure and style guides. Like this is the style guides to how do the documentation gets written. If you want to write a new topic, they have a process here on writing a new, and if it's going to be a concept, it's going to be a task, it's going to be a tutorial. And then maintaining the docs is like they are very um raise the bar in terms of selecting adding new content, because that is more work. But improving the current content, I think that's a little bit easier to get in if you want to contribute. And everything's through markdowns. And yeah, and they have a community also, like Melanie was saying, for translation. Sometimes you will see translations, and then you can improve them, saying like, in my language we don't explain things like that, right? And they try to, sometimes you see the translation that went from English directly to your language. Like, for example, I speak in Spanish, and I was like, that that's somebody can understand, but it's not that's not the way I would explain that one in that concept in Spanish, or like the steps, or maybe the verbiage of like how to do things. So that's also the team also was always looks for groups, and then Slack channels for every language. Like I joined for, I think for a few months, and I was doing contributions in Spanish. I think it was storage, because I wanted to learn about storage. And I was reading the English one, and then the Spanish one, they were looking for help, because it was not there. Like it doesn't, sometimes the content doesn't exist. Like that's something that to be aware in terms of like having empathy, right? You assume that if maybe you speak English, your primary language, you will find all the documentation here. Somebody else comes in and it doesn't have all the documentation in their language, right? So that's something that also you can help the community on getting that information in their language. So that's a great way also to contribute. A lot of people ask like how to get started contributing into Kubernetes, and sometimes docs, people seem that they're not important, and like that's like one of the most important things of the project, right? Maintaining the docs and be sure that they're updated every SIG. Like for example, I was showing the dynamic resource allocation, right? So there's a working group for DRA that Mélony was mentioning. There's no a doc team that writes their documentation, because that doesn't make sense. The doc team are not experts in DRA. So the DRA experts need to write the documentation, but they're not experts writing documentation. So how do you make good documentation, right? If you have people that are experts in the technology, and then you have people that are experts in taxonomy and information architecture come together. So that's the idea, that the SIG will reach out to the docs, and they will try to find contributors, like first-time contributors that can like connect the two things. Like they're learning about DRA, and they also learn about like taxonomy of the website, and then the information architecture of the website. And then they can like spend time like what would be the best way to describe or explain, in this case this is the documentation for DRA, right, in a way that is concise and easy, and then have examples, and maybe contributing a tutorial, right? It could be in the docs, or it could be in the GitHub repo.
Yeah, especially for the tutorial side, actually, it's very important because we always going to change the version of the packages. If you get been through the Kubernetes in the hard way, so basically you need to install the packages, and this is one of the topics in CKA exam. It to be able to install Kubernetes packages. For instance, when you provision multiple virtual machines, and sometimes the version of the package the change or just depends on operating system or otherwise, just because you're using the same command and didn't give you the same experience you're expecting. So basically, contributing to your tutorial based on the real life hands-on experience is very important, and it's going to be very beneficial just because the technology, this particular version of OS or version of the commands or package, they change over time. Therefore, using the most updated technology will be very beneficial if you make this kind of contributions. And we need this all the time just because of documentation reading written like for many months. Probably you change a version or change something, everything could happen. Therefore, actually, I'm really suggesting to update the tutorials every 3 or 6 months, 6 months at a minimum, and probably just time pass by like a year or two, everything changed. Therefore, always keep an eye on this. And because one thing you need to remember is your contribution will help a lot of people learn the technology better. And some people, if they don't know about technology, they got stuck just because of not creating information on the doc, and it's gonna be create some difficulties. And if you're trying to resolve this challenge, so indirectly you're also helping people. So to me, I think this is the whole idea why we need to contribute, we need to learn to contribute to help people.
Yeah, the tutorials are here, and I will say, like, don't feel bad, like, if you don't see like extensive number of tutorials here, like, learn the basics, because Kubernetes is so vast and it's changed so quickly that it'll be impossible to put all the tutorials here and all the examples. So that's why there's other resources, like Sevi mentioned, the Kubernetes examples, and then like Melanie would say, like, anyone that feels that they can contribute something is as easy as putting on a blog site, creating a blog, or putting it in GitHub, or sometimes it goes into the SIG. So the SIG will have a GitHub repo specific to storage or node, and then they will have examples there. And then that's what you can how you can learn on them, looking at their GitHub repo, have examples. And maybe a tip, I don't know if people do this, I do that. Maybe Chat does it. I always look for the test folder on every GitHub repo. So if I'm trying to find out like how something works and it's not in the docs, it's not in the tutorial, it's not an example, like, I know these folks are good. I'm pretty sure if I go into the examples, into the test, end-to-end test or unit test, I will find like they test the use case. It just happens that they don't document every corner case, right, or every configuration. So I will go to the tests. That's the tip. And if it's not, then go to the CRD. A lot of people don't know that the CRD has documentation. Um, it comes from Go, but if you open the CRD and they're like good stewards, it has documentation to a certain degree, because CRDs also has a limit. That's the catch 22 with CRDs. Like, their API specs, Swagger, so you can put all the documentation there. But the thing is, the CRD, does somebody know, Sevi or Chad or somebody else, what's the limit? I think it's 1 meg, like every object in a CD, maybe. But a CRD cannot go. All those annotations that you put in the controller will go there, and then you have to extract it. So CRD will be the second one. And then another tip, at least for learning, that I learned, not for me, but for somebody else, is they were trying to figure out, I think it was the Grafana operator. Grafana operator has CRDs to create Grafana, to create dashboards. And we were trying to figure out how to configure something specific. I think it was for a cloud provider, like workload identity and the load balancer and the annotations, how to pass the version. And there was no documentation. Like, we went to the docs and we were trying to find a simple example as like how to create a load balancer for the Grafana object. There was a lot of information about how to create an ingress, but we wanted to just create a service load balancer type, no load balancer for a cloud provider to just spin it up. And it took like 15 minutes and we were not finding the docs. So this person told me afterwards, he downloaded the CRDs, he put it into the IDE in VS Code, and then he used the LLM from VS Code. There's many ones, like there's Amazon Q, Copilot. And then he asked the question, and the LLM read the CRD and gave him the answer, exact YAML that he needed for that project, with that version of that CRD. So the CRD can become a RAG. So I don't know if that's a concept or not, but at least I'm using that tip of using CRDs as a RAG to make the LLMs answer correctly. I don't know if you heard about that, Chad or Sebi, but it was very interesting way of doing that. Okay.
Now we have two CKA book offers in the room. Mélony, maybe you can't see the screen, but we have Chad Crowell here as well, and he happens to have a CKA exam book. I wanted to ask you about the new, upcoming changes in the exam. Like, have you had a chance to go over them? Like, what do you think about it? Is it just for keeping it up to date, or are there any breaking changes that would affect people's practices, like preparation?
So for certification preparation here, I think very important, no matter what changes, is really to have a solid foundation of understanding of technology. And if you notice, for instance, when we decoding a CKA exam, there are always some, tips and traps that is aside from the technology or knowledge itself. For instance, when I did my exam, actually I had I can only use one screen. So basically, I have my laptop, and then the proctor just watch me through the camera. That was really, really weird. And but that actually gives me a little bit of focus also as well, because I only had a one screen. And I actually, I think a few years ago, probably like 24 months ago, I don't remember exactly. And nowadays, people can pass certification using two screen. So basically, you can, just make sure you have a clean desktop where you need to basically have one screen more to be able to use the doc. Because one thing we really truly recommend when you passing the certification is to bookmark the most important documentation of all, enter the domain kubernetes.io, because that's likely where you'll find the most information. For instance, about a YAML, about some other stuff, will be appeared in the certification itself. Therefore, at that time, because I had only one screen, it was very difficult for me, just to switch screen. So I actually divided my small screen, which is like a 14-inch laptop, too. Then it was actually very difficult for me. But I think nowadays people may have more luck, when it comes to certification passing preparation as well. Then about the proportion, yeah, actually, sorry, thank you. You're actually showing the right screen here, because we have different pillars. Before, actually, when we see the certification, probably a lot of people focus on how to install and understand the architecture of Kubernetes. But over the years, we actually raised the bar. So because we had more people know about Kubernetes now, you know about different components, how they work together. Therefore, admin exam mainly focus on the infrastructure side of things when you're seeing screen here. So we only have 15% is about how to scheduling applications, because working on applications is more about CKD rather than CKA. So as an administrator, so basically your work will be focusing on how to troubleshooting as well as how to deal with the networking side of things. So security is one of the things actually I mentioned in the book. However, because we have CKAs as a separate certification now, so we'll be more focused on the security focused topics. Therefore, I would recommend, really use your time on preparing all the networking, because it's 20%, and troubleshooting side as well. But the troubleshooting is more about how you install a package, and as well as the networking side of things. So networking, if I just trying to be exclusive, is very important. You can see this is one of the most important things for you to prepare, especially how to understand the different type of services and the network policies. So basically, one thing very need to understand is about our ingress and also the application gateway API, those kind of things. Because ingress actually, when I passed my certification, wasn't really a part of, because what wasn't integrated yet, and we still at the time we need to do an annotation, for ingress as well. Nginx, for instance, but nowadays actually have more variation in testing this part of knowledge. The fundamental still doesn't change. You need to understand the networking OSI model. Therefore, why we are doing this on network side of things. And one thing to bear to deal with any kind of challenges with Kubernetes is to remember the different commands, because obviously you can, obviously you can see it from the documentation, but the commands, if you still need to spend 5 minutes to find the right command, it will take a lot of time. And Kubernetes, all the Kubernetes certifications is a time management challenge, because even though you know about the technology, you know how to use it, but it probably just still running out of time, because of running a command. Then it takes a lot of time. They probably have some networking issues just because you are, passing the exam on a remote fashion. Therefore, really remember the things, the most important things, and practice them multiple times. At least when you don't need to think about it, you can just use it, and that's a goal. So time management is very important. Probably, really, I want to stress enough, even if your goal is to pass certification, and because that actually you can put on your CV to find a good job, but understand the technology and realize why your technology is the most important thing, because that's where you will deal with different challenges once you get a job. So I would think one step ahead. Don't think of, have the certification is okay, we good. But more importantly is if you can really resolve the challenges when you once get on a job, and you can bring value to the organization. Yeah.
Yeah, we have an interesting question from Kameswaran now from the chat. He says, "Do you recommend doing the KCNA before doing the KCD? Do you need the KCNA before doing the KCD, or both do not overlap?"
So one information though, when I passed my certification, that was back I think a few years ago. I think it was 2018 or 19, I think. Yeah. So it's about 5 years ago. We didn't really have all the fundamental exams. But nowadays, when I check out all the different topics, I still think CKA is one of the most profound exam here, compared to CKAs, because they just have different specialization. Therefore, I always recommend people, if you want to pass any Kubernetes certification, starting from the fundamental exam, because that actually gives you like a flavor, a test of it, so you know how to get started. Therefore, once you get in a real exam with CKA or CKS or CKD, so basically you already mentally prepared. You can just get on, and a lot of things heavily on the hands-on challenges. So you really need to be quick. You need to be very familiar with the concept, and you know what to do. So those are the things I recommend.
Yeah, the case. I think you mentioned CKAD. I think you meant.
Yeah, so
But yeah,
basically, KCNA is a fundamental exam. So
yeah,
basically a lot
this
of,
one we're trying. Yeah, this
yeah,
one.
so
The case.
basically
This
every
is the
exam
KCNA.
is very similar to Amazon certifications as well. If you have an associate, which means actually it's more about a fundamental foundation exam, where you get some basic knowledge, and then you can get into more advanced ones.
Yeah.
If I could just add, sorry.
Go ahead.
If I could just add one more thing, the difference between the KCNA and the CKA is that the KCNA is multiple choice. It depends on who I'm talking to, because I've gotten this questioned a lot. I usually recommend people who are very new to Kubernetes and containers to take the KCNA because there is a lot of background and fundamental knowledge that you gain. But if somebody's talking to me as a systems administrator or an SRE, and they're going to be using Kubernetes on a daily basis, and they're talking to their manager about, which certification to get, I usually recommend in that case, if they have a solid background of Linux and containers, to just go for the CKA.
Yep. The
KCNA is the exams are very expensive, so that it also depends on who you're talking to. If your work is paying for this, then yeah, go for all the exams, But if you're paying for this out of pocket, as you can see, $395 is pretty. I think the KCNA is $395 as well. So that's, if you want to get more bang for your buck, I usually say go for the CKA. The CKA is a hands-on exam, so you're actually in the terminal doing commands, whereas the KCNA is multiple choice.
Yeah. So Jack has a question.
Sorry. Yeah, probably I just want to add one more. I have to be here because the KCNA more about, if you want to get a more hands-on experience, probably, and if you don't want to break your bank, there's a way to do it, to try out some simulators. So basically, for instance, Kira's SH, I think, you can just try some different scenarios. I think it's very important to get a hands-on experience, first off. Therefore, probably try out different simulators and different scenarios, specifically focus on the topics that exam covers. Therefore, that will actually help you, save a little bit. And I think a CKA exam, when I passed, repassed actually last time, I think they give you a watch. Basically you have the first one. Then if you do a retake, the retake actually is like a half price, but when you buy one, you have another account together as well. Yeah.
One more thing
Jack.
I'd like to add regarding the CKA exam. If you want my recommendation, I would highly recommend you take the CKA before, I would say even early November, because you get a free retake. So even if you fail the exam in early November, you have the chance to reschedule that before the November 25th cutoff. Reason why I suggest that is because,
and as soon as they can get me.
Yeah, so let's say you take the exam on the 24th, and then you fail the exam, you reschedule for after the 25th. Anytime after the 25th, the exam's going to change. It doesn't matter when you scheduled your original exam. If you'll notice in the cluster architecture, installation, and configuration section, so the storage, troubleshooting, and networking and scheduling have stayed the same. What's changed and been added have been in the cluster architecture, installation, and configuration. You see, now we're talking about understanding CRDs, installing CRDs, configuring operators. That's been added.
Interesting.
That's a big thing. And also, if you notice, they did a special mention for Helm and Customize. I remember this came up when we did my book a couple months ago, and there was a little, the wording was a little obscure, and even Carlos mentioned, how about Customize? Do we have to learn Customize? And at the time I said no, because there wasn't specific verbiage in there, but now there is, so I'm glad that they did that. The biggest thing over on the services networking side also is Gateway API. You have to know Gateway API and also ingress controllers. We've always had ingress in the exam, but now we have to actually know how to use ingress controllers on top of that.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, Jack, go ahead.
Okay, so a familiar theme from my perspective, we have all the different hyperscalers and all the different IT infrastructure providers, each with their own variations. So I have we build our stuff on OpenShift. I have customers who want to deliver it on Google Cloud. We build our stuff on OpenShift. Our customers want to deliver it on Amazon Web Services. So we have to train people not only in the cores of of Kubernetes, but each of the different variations of the infrastructure providers. Does the certification have any visibility to these significant nuances? Or is that a totally separate orthogonal training dimension?
Just make sure you send me that.
So totally separate. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mélony.
Yeah, so I would say certification is to give your fundamental knowledge here, to give you understanding about Kubernetes itself. But there are things very interesting. Actually, have a theory here. So basically, when we learn a Kubernetes, is to understand the technology. But at different hyperscalers, the control plane is managed. So in some way, to some organizations, it's much easier because they don't need to manage the workload. So to them, mostly to manage is more about the challenge about scalability and networking as well as security. Of course, each cloud has its capabilities, different services to help with. And we also have the whole ecosystem on Kubernetes to help with as well, different frameworks, etc. But I have a synergy here is the second way, because if you see a traditional application to be deployed on Kubernetes, it's in a much simpler way because they are using a managed Kubernetes cluster. But what's possible is also because our workloads are changing compared to in those days we work a lot with the microservices or very relatively simpler scenario. Nowadays we actually dealing with more big data analytics scenarios, or for the data applications, AI applications that will makes you obliged to interact more with the storage layer of things, as well as some capacity, just because, for instance, processing AI models actually has a huge challenge in terms of for the latency between the nodes, so networking things, as well as security, just because of processing data, so privacy, compliance, those kind of things. Also, when you interact to the control plane, the API server, that actually is very easy to be stuttering just because of overloaded. So it's possible in some scenarios will break the topology. Therefore, having understanding about Kubernetes, so for instance, how to offload the control plane by setting up some separated etcd server, the storage. So basically, that actually helps you have more flexibility to deal with the challenges where you will be facing, probably not in a typical scenario. So starting with CKA is a good point to help you have all the understanding. Either in the easier way, you have that, that vision to deal with some microservices or simpler scenarios, or today facing the new challenges with all the AI applications. So to me, this is kind of in the middle ground where you can learn everything. You can just go anywhere because you're just so much prepared because of this. Does that make sense? Or any questions?
Oh yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't solve the problem I'm trying to solve, and
Yeah.
it's okay. It's okay.
So
the
Jack-
other thing that I appreciate is that you're showing Gateway API. I've had so much invested in Ingress, and now I can see by yet another data point here. Ingress is old world. You're falling behind if you're working on Ingress, but we have so much invested in Ingress. I gotta figure out how to cap it and move to Gateway. And this is yet another data point because you're doing training. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah. I remember that we showed the small program that they created to convert the YAML from Ingress to Gateway API. That should help you.
I watched the YouTube
yeah.
video. I watched the YouTube video. I was like, I got to get off Ingress, and I was like, shoot, I can have a hard enough time getting to version 1.31.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for the cloud providers, I work for one of the cloud providers, and I can tell you at least my personal experience. I joined AWS. Like, people know that AWS, and they have EKS. When I joined, I was an expert on Kubernetes. Like, I had my certifications and I knew Kubernetes, and it's absolutely essential when you work with a cloud provider Kubernetes version to know these aspects. So if somebody comes in to work with a cloud provider, it doesn't matter if it's Civo, Google, OpenShift, having all these knowledge that is in this certification is you're going to use it heavily if you're going to be an admin or an SRE or a software vendor or software user or the platform team. Maybe I would say the specifics about kubeadm or backing up etcd. I don't see backing up etcd anymore here. Configuring high available control plane, preparing the underlying infrastructure in this case for the control plane, but you still need to do the worker nodes for the kubelet where the kubelet runs. Maybe this area is not specific to the cloud provider, but the other ones will help you. And the more they know about this, the less that they have to be like no specifics of the cloud provider. So for example, I can jump from cloud provider to cloud provider, all these things, but it's because you have a good foundation of like how Kubernetes works. I've seen people that on the opposite, that they started learning about from the cloud provider perspective, like learning Kubernetes in that area, and when they hit like problems or corner cases or performance or how to configure things in a better way, and they don't have the fundamentals that there's, and I guess like you don't have to have the certification. I'm trying to say, like, you don't have to pass the certification, but if you have the knowledge to pass the certification, then that's more valuable, or like it would increase your chances to be successful, because a lot of people don't have the fundamentals of Kubernetes, and they ask questions about like, well, how this works, or why it's not working, or how would I configure it? And most of the time the answer is, well, the Kubernetes way, like that's how Kubernetes works. And they mix or intermingle the part that is Kubernetes for the part that is the cloud provider, and they think that's the cloud provider thing, which they are, and there's a Kubernetes thing. And if they have this knowledge, they will be able to differentiate, like, well, that's cloud specific and this is Kubernetes specific, and they come together in the integration. And I understand the integration. A lot of people, and it's a lot of information to learn, right?
Oh, no,
like,
I'm with you. We all need the fundamentals. We all need the fundamentals. Remember, I also have stuff that I'm building on OpenShift that has to run on my customer's Tanzu environment, or I've got another customer with Rancher. So the combinations and permutations are unbounded, and so the training challenge is unbounded. And so it's just, I just wanted to hear your perspective on my problem. That's all. Thank you very much.
Yep. Okay, so I think we're all off time, but I think this was a good session for getting an overview of the CKA exam. Thank you, Mélony, for joining today and give us so much information, and also like motivation for people like to learn more about this technology that we work on, and people that want to get into the space, right? Find a job or move or improve their career path learning this. And we'll meet next week, and hopefully we can go deeper into pick one of their chapters, right, of your book, and you can show it, and we can go over some examples and doing them live. So appreciate you joining us in the book club. So I think this was a good session to
Thank
ramp
you.
up.
And if you
Mélony,
don't mind,
thank you.
actually, I want to share also a little bit further forward, because this part is kind of overlooked, every time. And when as an author, I always, I try to tell my, it's about technology, it's about knowledge when I make my videos, but I never got a chance to thank all the authors who wrote the forward for me. For instance, Brandon Burns, he's the co-founder of Kubernetes Technology and project. Actually, he shared his insights, in the forward. So basically, Kubernetes is a magic technology to resolve the infrastructure challenges for developers, and it's just getting bigger and bigger over time. Therefore, actually, his application for his technology, I think, is really, every day when we have different applications. For instance, nowadays we work on one-on-one AI. Of course, we need to make sure the platform to be more adapted, to the different technologies, different workloads we're gonna be deploying in the future. Therefore, really encouraging everybody, he founded the technology, but we're all part of that. So contributing to the technology, if you are any really good ideas or really doesn't need to be too good as well. You can just submit a KIP. So basically, it's a proposal to Kubernetes project where you can share your insights and what we need to do to really adapt your requirements. Just to make the project better. And secondly, I want to thank Alexander, and he's a CNCF ambassador. And over the years, he
I know him.
delivered a lot of different talks. And I know Carlos, you know him as well. And we
Yep.
all know him, I think. Yeah. So I think, the spirit actually he shared about Kubernetes just based on his experience, I think he's very good also to be transparent. So I learned personally a lot from him just because of the transparency as well as optimism. So technology is not really about only about knowledge; it's also about attitude. So basically, your spirit here is to help people. Technology is a tool, is a power to empower you to do that. And the third thing I think is Mark Whitby is my personal friend because when I was at Microsoft, actually he mentored me a lot. So he shared his experience working with customers about Kubernetes adoption. Therefore, if anyone you have a subscription or you just read this book, probably also looking at some forwards we wrote to learn because actually that gives you the overview why we wrote this book. Actually, I wrote this book and why we so much count on this technology is not only because this is a tool to enable you to find a new job, it can help you find a new career path. And the objective is to be there is to really help people adopt technology and to make our life better, make the business better. So that's what I want to share. If you have time, also I can share my personal story why I wrote this book and what happened in my lowest point of life. And I hope those motivation can help you and make you learn Kubernetes technology and make the process more enjoyable.
I agree. Savvy, you have something to say?
Yeah, I'm really touched that you shared this with us, that this was a very low point for you personally. And yeah, thank you. I mean, now, Carlos, I don't know, we have to find some people to write, or we should sit down and write books. I don't know. I'm really impressed and just want to do some. Yeah.
Yeah, Melanie is a very smart person and very kind person with the community, and she's showed her passion for and the love for sharing what she knows and motivate other folks. So thank you so much, Melanie. We're out of time today, but next Friday, right, if you can join us, we'll do some exercises and then we can talk
Let's
more
dive in the book. Yeah.
and hopefully new people join and we can motivate them to learn and then get sign up for the exam, right? Don't be afraid. A lot of people they can do the exam, but it just afraid because they don't know. Maybe it's the first one, right? So after you take the first one, you know the process and the mechanics, and we can talk about that also in the next session. So thank you, folks. Thank you, Sevi, Chad, Gibson, Jack
Thanks,
Left,
everyone.
Shaima, and Save. So yeah, buy the book, download the book, and then next week we'll show some chapters and then answer questions. Bring your questions and we'll answer them here, or we'll find the answer on the fly. So thank you so much and have a great weekend, folks.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Very nice.
everyone.
Yeah.
Have a good
Bye.
weekend.
Bye.
Have a good weekend, everybody. See you next week.